Great. So today here with us with Esma, I will give you a short introduction and she give the word to her to introduce herself. But first, I would like to explain you why we are here, like under which project we are here about to explain you a little bit about Accelerate 2030. It's the world's largest impact scaling program for advanced stage positive impact oriented startups that develop solutions in line with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And today will be mostly about Sustainable Development Goals and how it works, how it helps us define our impact aims, how it like facilitates this common language of impact, and how we can utilize it to achieve like global scale goals. And this year, the program implemented under the global cooperation of Impact Hub and UNDP is carried out in Turkey in cooperation with GIZ, Turkish Entrepreneurship Foundation, Impact Hub Istanbul, and UNDP Turkey. So welcome again after having these first remarks. So I know it's getting late in the day, so I would like to start with a 1-minute video. So Ravan, if you can share your screen with the sound and video optimization, if that's possible. So this video we just tried to watch, and Zoom tried its best to ruin it for you. But I'm not sure if you have watched it, but it's one of my favorite stage shows ever. It's the opening ceremony of the Beijing Olympics. And the idea, like the feeling it gives to me is like the cohesion on a such like high level with people doing such hard tasks in such a precision at the same time, like always gives me goosebumps, and like it really influences me a lot. And like today, actually, I see its reflection in many places, and I see SDGs in a very similar format, because like we have problems in the global scale. We have wicked problems that should be dealt with on such a high level with so many stakeholders on such a complex level, and we need to find this cohesion of like incredibly hard tasks together simultaneously. And this is really hard to have people on board, having the same language, having the same vision for the future. And we think SDGs are a quite good way to start with to create a new language. And today our guest, Esma Nairi, is together with us. She is a training coordinator at INGEV, but I'm sure she will introduce herself much better than I can. So welcome, Esma. Let's hear from you. Can you
Hello,
introduce
Melih.
yourself?
Hello to everyone. Thanks for joining us. Melih, thank you for the first video. It was going to be an amazing, in fact, closing video and a great conclusion for today's topic. So my name is Asma. I'm basically a Tunisian lawyer, and I came to Turkey 7 years ago to do my PhD. I did my PhD on cultural anthropology, worked a lot for 10 years with refugees. I started my work in Tunisia with Amnesty International, and after moved to Lebanon, Egypt, and I came finally to be here in Turkey. And in the last 10 years, I did a lot of work in different sectors that were in a point related to the SDGs and the development goals. Now, currently, I'm working with INGEF, Human Development Foundation, which is one of the organizations in Turkey working basically on the development of the human beings and the equality of life. And we try, I mean, in Gengev, we are committing and not leaving anyone behind. So it's our motto, in fact, and we try to do it with different projects. Mainly, what I am doing is training. And as you know, it's the fourth SDG. So it's like, I'm working for the fourth SDG, basically. I am an ambassador of the fourth SDG, if I may call it myself. And yes, that's me.
Look, considering there are some people in our audience today who
Seyirciler
work
arasında
in different sector at the moment and want to
şu an
switch
farklı
to the social
sektörlerde
sector, so we would like to know
bulunanlar
your
varsa ve
perspective
sosyal
on
hizmetler
what
sektörüne
it's
geçmek
like
isteyenler
working
olabilir.
in
Bunu da
the social
unutmayalım.
sector and
Sosyal
how do you
hizmetler
think
sektöründe nasıl
working with this
çalışmaya başladın
responsibility as a
ve
person
bu
became
sektörde
another step level?
çalışırken karakterin nasıl değişti? Temel seviyelerde, temel açılarıyla. Çok güzel bir soru.
Was young, I have to use this sentence now. I was in Tunisia during the dictatorship, in fact, in the Ben Ali regime just before the Arab Spring. And in that times, we had a question of justice and the human rights. And it was the starting point in which I felt like I want to be in a better place. I want to help people have a better world. And first, I didn't think about SDGs. In fact, in these times, we didn't have SDGs. We had like Millennium Development Goals. As you know, SDGs is like after 2013-15. But before, we didn't have this thing. But I'm sure that many of us always had the point of, I
Ki
want
pek
to change
çoğumuz
the world, I want to be in a
evet,
better
dünyayı
place.
değiştirmek
I want
istiyorum,
to
daha
help
iyi bir
others.
konumda olmak
And that
istiyorum,
was my
insanlara yardımcı
goal.
olabilmek
And
istiyorum
I wasn't thinking about
demiştir kendi kendine ve
SDGs.
hala
And
diyordur.
I
İşte
was
ben de
like
böyle bir
20
noktadan
years old and I
ortaya
wanted
çıktım.
to do something with
Tunusya'da hukuk
LGBT
fakültesinde
rights first. And I started working with
eğitimime
activists
devam ederken
and
öncelikle
we started
LGBT hakları
search
konusunda bir şeyler yapmak
on
istiyordum.
basically
Uluslararası alanda
seeing all the
özellikle. İlk
cases from
olarak
different people and different
farklı
vulnerable groups
insanlar ve
basically
farklı
working
dezavantajlı
against
ve
LGBT
hassas
culture.
gruplar
After that,
arasındaki
in two
eşitsizlikleri
years we
ortadan
had
kaldırmak
our
istiyorduk.
civil war
Özellikle
job and we
kadınlar ve
started
LGBT
receiving
üyeleri
refugees from Libya to Tunisia.
arasında.
And that was my
Ve
experience working
sonrasında
with
her
refugees.
yerden bir
And I
grup
didn't know
mülteciler gelmeye
about
başladı
reports,
Tunusya'ya biliyorsunuz.
human rights reports. And
Ve
after
benim
that,
de
so
mültecilerle
I started
tecrübelerim bu şekilde
understanding what's
gelişmeye
happening
başladı.
out there
Raporlar
in the
yazmaya
social work. And
başladım.
I'm doing the
Ve bir
humanitarian
müddet
work basically in
sonra
the social work.
sosyal
And
hizmet diye bir şey
basically,
olduğunu
that was
anladım.
my experience in entering this field. Of
İşte bu
course, by
sektöre
time,
aslında bu alana
we had the
böyle
international
girdim.
cases, the role of civil
Tabii zaman
society in
içerisinde
the Middle East,
sivil toplum
humanitarian
kuruluşları
in the same time. And
orta,
we started
ve farklı
creating projects
konferanslarda
all
bulunma
around
fırsatım
the
oldu
world
Orta Doğu'da
in which we can create a
ve
lot of
Akdeniz
projects
bölgesinde
of change and
birlikte bir
development.
diyaloğa girip
And
ya
in
da
that times,
birlikte tartışmalara girip
we had
belli bir
like
kalkınma seviyesini nasıl getirebiliriz, nasıl bir değişim yaratabiliriz diye
Millennium
konuştuk.
Development Goals that were
Ve
in fact also successful and they were
bu
on my
sırada
list
Birleşmiş
somehow very
Milletler'in
successful. But after these
Millennium
Millennium
Kalkınma
Goals
Planları
finished in 2015 and we started talking about the
vardı.
Sustainable Development
Fakat
Goals,
evet
certain
başarılı olsalar da bunlar bir ölçüde 2015'ten sonra
if I may define
sürdürülebilir
it in
kalkınma
one word,
amaçlarının ortaya
is
çıkışıyla beraber bir şeyler
development
değişti
first.
ve sosyal
Development
hizmetler
that you want to be
inanıyorum
connected
ki
to others and you want to change
bir
the
birey
world for the
olarak bir
better.
şeyler yapmak
And it's
istiyorsanız
something
ve
really
dünyayı
easy and simple. In fact, it's not that much complicated because if you take
أصلاً
any news,
ولكنه يمكن أن
it is
bugün
hard
herhangi bir haberi okursanız
for sure related to one of the SDGs. We have 17 SDGs, and all the social work is about all the things we are living in our daily life. So, whatever work you are doing, it can somehow be related and to the social impact.
So, okay, you ended the sentence in such a great place that then now I need to ask, what should we understand from sustainable development? Like how it is defined under this context?
Well, I would start with talking about the industrial development. You know that first development was always related with doing more, having growth, and having money, and developing our goals and indicators at whatever we are doing. But we did this for a lot of time, for like hundreds of years, and we had colonization because of that. We had people like we had European powers coming with their industries to the third world, and it was not real development. In fact, it was just industrial development that in fact harmed the human beings, cultures, civilizations, and at the same time the earth and the environment. So after that, sustainable development, it can be seen as the development that we can do in order not only to have growth, but also to protect future generations. So sustainable development is not stopping and going back, in fact, and that's a wrong image we have about it. Sustainable development is still developing, but with an ethical side of it. We're thinking about the new generations, the future generations, thinking about all the living beings, the nature, the animals, everyone who is everything sharing this planet. I think of sustainable development as a must, and that human beings now, we are the first generations that is starting to feel a lot of problems because of the old conception and understanding of development and industrial development. And we are having the climate change, the horrible environmental crisis we are going through. Sustainable development is one of the ways in order to stop and to be aware of the steps we are doing, in fact, in order to just keep growing, but also respecting the future generations and respecting the planet, the environment, everyone in this life. This is how I see it, in fact. I think that I don't think we should go through all the theoretical definitions and all the conventions and law texts, because it's a lot of work. I mean, as you know, like SDGs, we have 17 of them, but we have under them 3,000 different issues. I mean, I think that's a lot. And you just cannot stop and give all the concepts and the theoretical work. It's gonna be really messy. I think that it is really so simple as this one. It's working to develop the human being, the humanity, respecting the heritage, the global heritage, the humanitarian heritage, and respecting the future, the rights of the future generations.
Yeah, a lot, as you said, there are 17 SDGs, and a lot of the conversation around the social impact or sustainable development are centered around sustainable SDGs.
Yeah.
So can you explain us? Can you give us a brief history of SDGs? You mentioned Millennium Development Goals. How did they come to be, and what do they stand for? I mean, not one by one, but as a whole.
Mainly it's just as simple as having common goals. I mean, it's like human being, they finally see that red light, beep, beep, beep, it's emergency, we are going to an end, and it is becoming catastrophic all over the world. And we just came to, okay, we need to stop this. We need to do something, because it means the end of all of us. And here, there is no difference anymore between Norway or Tunisia, or being a white or a black, or being a woman or a man. I mean, we are all living under the same planet, and humanity and the international community starts to understand that it is a point in which we need to move on, and we need to find somehow a planning, an agenda, a strategy to do something, and to work as a human being. As a humanity, all of us, with all the governments, just as the video you saw, we saw a little bit before, in order to stop the way it is going, it's running a crazy way. And we had different goals. As I mentioned before, we had first the Millennium Development Goals, and it worked somehow. I was watching some videos about it. We had in 2010, we had 57% of people around the world who were under poverty, but in 2010, and in 2015, we had this amount to 31%.
Bunun %31'e düştüğünü gördük. Yani aslında bir şeyler yaptığımızı görebiliyoruz etki yaratmada. Ama hedeflere doğru zamanlarda, doğru dönemlerde, doğru şartlarda ulaşamadığımız için Birleşmiş Milletler bir dizi çok büyük araştırmalar ve raporlar neticesinde, tabii danışmanlıklar da var bunun içerisinde, dünya genelinde bu işlemleri sürdükten sonra 17 adet sürdürülebilir kalkınma amacını ortaya koydu. Bildiğiniz gibi açlık yok, sefillik yok, kaliteli eğitim, esenlik gibi konulardan başlıyor ve bizim insan olarak her konuda karşımıza çıkan unsurları ve sağlığımıza, iyi oluşumuza tehdit oluşturabilecek unsurları kapsıyor. Diyelim Cuma günü evde oturuyorsunuz, bir yere gitmeniz gerekiyor ama gitmek istemiyorsunuz. Veya pazar günü mesela ben pazartesi işe gitmek istemiyorum diyorsunuz. İşte bu da esenlik konusuyla alakalı olduğu için aslında yine sürdürülebilir kalkınma amaçlarına dayanıyor. İşte sürdürülebilir kalkınma amaçlarının çok başarılı olduğu.
In your daily simple life.
نشيطا حتى في نشاطاتك اليومية العادية.
Really nice and really important that you can relate to it from the first hand. But I'm sure many people out there are failing to do it because sometimes it's very limited to to business. Like for some people, it's really limiting to business. Which brings me to the business part of the equation. How do you like how does it benefit? How is it beneficial? How SDGs are beneficial working for like social change and impact? Like how is it useful on a professional level as well? Why
Yeah.
should we use them?
So, I mean, like, first of all, it is sustainable development is not only, it doesn't mean that you are going to lose money when you are a business. In fact, if you work with like renewable energy, it means that you are in fact not spending too much. If you have your own workers, that they have like quality education, that they, if you are thinking about their well-being and health, then you will have a better quality. So indirectly and directly speaking, sustainable development goals in the workspace are really important to just keep a very healthy way of improvement, but also it helps you from a business way. You know that different and a lot of countries, I mean, all the ones that they just ratified and signed the SDGs, the UN countries, I mean, when they are giving, they're putting new laws and new encouragements to businesses, especially from the taxation side. So if you're trying to use renewable energy, you have different support from the state and government in that way. And it's another point, in fact. It's also, I mean, like economic growth. I mean, the problem here, I guess, especially for businessmen, is that I don't think that there is an equation in which they can put economic growth and being profitable and ethics in the same equation, the same line. And they think that it is not possible. In fact, it is possible. And there is, I have in my mind an example of, he was an American guy. He had a shoe business and he did a shoe which is growing. And he said, so it's like for African people and people with poverty, facing poverty, and they cannot afford to have like 2 or 3 shoes each year. They can just get this one. It's like 13 euros, and you can use it for 10 years because it's growing, and it is a very little creative idea that is changing the human mind. They're changing the life of different people, supporting people, working for the SDGs, but it's in the same time it is profitable because he sent like thousands and thousands of them all over the world. So creativity, sustainable development goals, SDGs, and business, they are in fact can be a positive a way, in fact, to be profitable and to have
Hem karlılık için hem de başarılı bir işletme yönetimi için gayet yardımcı olabilecek unsurlar. Hatta çok nadiren zorluklar çıkarıyorlar. Evet, alandan kendi gözlemlerime ve tecrübelerime bakacak olursam, sürdürülebilir kalkınma amaçları da ortak bir dil aslında resmen. Bugün webinarımızın da başlığı farklı topluluklarda bir ortak dil işlevi üstleniyor ve sosyal etkiyi iletebilmekte çok ayrı bir boyut katıyorlar, çok basit olmaları sayesinde. Peki sürdürülebilir kalkınma amaçlarında ortak bir dilimiz olması neden önemli? Neden etki için ortak bir alanda toplanmamız gerekiyor ve ortak bir dilde? Evet, daha önce de dediğim gibi bu çok büyük ve kötü değişiklikleri gören ilk nesiller bizleriz. Mesela Covid'e bakın, Covid-19 durumunda hayatımızın belki 2 senesini kaybettik. 4 duvar arasına sıkıştık. Ve açık konuşmalıyım, Covid aslında bence şu açıdan faydalı oldu. Gözümüzü açtı, bir şeyler yaparken yanlış yaptığımızı bize göstermiş oldu. Ve sürdürülebilir kalkınma amaçları bize, hepimize aynı anda toplamanın yanı sıra aynı şekilde hepimizi aynı amaçlar doğrultusunda, aynı amaçlar uğruna çalışmaya yöneltiyor. Bu da çok ayrı bir fayda. Biz bunu niye yapıyoruz? Sonraki adımlarımız ne olacak? Neleri nasıl planlayabiliriz gibi farklı sorular beliriyordu oradan kafamızda. 2050 senesine geldiğimizde 9 milyar insan olması bekleniyor bu gezegende. Ve çok büyük bir sayı farkındaysanız. Yani böyle sürekli ürerken Evet, yani mesela diyelim aşık oldunuz, bir çocuk yaptınız aşık olduğunuz bireyle. Evet, çok güzel bir şey ama bunun da şöyle bir sorumluluğu var. Sağlık hizmetlerine ve yemeğe, gıdaya ihtiyaç duyan insanlar var. Ve sorumluluğu üzerinizde olan bir insan varsa veya bir hayvan da olabilir köpek gibi geleceklerini düşünmek zorunda kalıyorsunuz. İşte sürdürülebilir kalkınma amaçları da bu konuda ortak bir noktada olduğumuzu garanti ediyor. Bu hükümet seviyesinde olabilir, bireysel seviyede, vatandaş seviyesinde olabilir, işletme seviyesinde olabilir. Hangi seviyede olursa olsun ortak bir dil oluşturarak bizi aynı yerde topluyor ve bize şunu dedirtebiliyor. Evet, şuraya kadar geldik diyoruz mesela Birleşmiş Milletler'in senelik raporlarında sürdürülebilir kalkınma amaçları üzerine ve Türkiye'de de bu indeks üzerinden, kalkınma indeksi üzerinden hangi belediyelerin sürdürülebilirliği ve insani büyümeyi daha çok umursadığını ve bu konuda daha çok hizmet verdiğini görebiliyoruz bu indeks üzerinden. İşte bunun gibi örnekler. O an nerede olduğumuzu, hangi yönde ilerlediğimizi görebiliyoruz. Lübnan ve Hindistan gibi ülkelerde çok güzel aktiviteler ve projeler yürütüyorlar. Bir farkındalık seviyesi oluşmuş. İşletmeler bu konu etrafında şekilleniyor. Çok farklı bir kafa yapısı aslında. Bir işletmeyi yürütürken işletmemi hem nasıl etik kuralları çerçevesinde yürütebilirim ve karlı hale getirebilirim hem de başkalarına zarar vermeden yönetebilirim. İşte ortak bir dil oluşturmak bu noktada çok faydalı oluyor. Geçen hafta da bu konuda konuştuğumuzda tüm bu iklim krizleri ve gördüğümüz orman yangınları ve farklı konulardan konuştuk. İşte farklı stickerlar görebiliyorsunuz elimde. Sürdürülebilir kalkınma amaçları stickerleri bunlar. İşte bunları gençlere verdiğiniz zaman bu gençlerin kafasına bir iş fikri ya da bir işletme fikri geldiğinde hem karlılığı düşünüyorlar, hem etik değerleri düşünüyorlar, hem de sürdürülebilir kalkınma amaçlarını düşünüyorlar. Ve bunu görmek açıkçası çok güzel bir his. Çünkü geçmişte çoğu sürdürülebilir kalkınma amaçları hakkında hiçbir şey bilmiyordu. Çevre sıkıntıları hakkında hiçbir şey bilmiyordu ve daha geçen daha geçtiğimiz günlerde birileri şunları sordu bana. Ben 10. amaç üzerine çalışıyorum. Sen hangi amaç üzerine çalışıyorsun? Ve böyle bir soru sorulduğunda ortak bir dil oluşturmak çok zor gibi gözükebilir ama aslında gerçekten değil. İnsanlara biz hangi noktadayız, nasıl riskler taşıyoruz? Mesela önümüzde gelecekte çocuklarımızın temiz suyu, yiyecek yemeği, temiz havası olmayabilir dediğimizde insanlar bir şeylerin farkına varabiliyor ve bunu verdiğiniz küçük bir stickerla da sağlayabiliyorsunuz bazen. Düşünüyorlar, değişimi nasıl yaratabilirim, nasıl bir değişim sağlayabilirim diye. Evet, burada belki biraz iyimser bakıyorum ama bence tüm insanların özünde iyilik var bir noktada ve bence hepimiz içten içe bu gezegen için iyi bir şeyler yapmak istiyoruz. İşte ortak bir dilin yaratılması bu yüzden çok faydalı olabiliyor ve öte yandan sürdürülebilir kalkınma amaçlarını daha yeni öğrenen insanlar kendi amaçlarını ve fikirlerini doğrudan bu amaçlar ışığında şekillendirebiliyorlar sektöre girerken. Bu arada toplantıdaki herkese bir şey söylemenin vakti geldi. Kendi sorularınızı sohbet kısmına yazabilirsiniz, Zoom'daki chat kısmına. Evet, kendi kendime soru mu sorayım yani? Ama bence çok güzel sorular çıkardı böyle bir şey yapsa. Ama evet seyircilerimiz, sayın seyircilerimiz sürdürülebilir kalkınma planları
Like meanwhile, I will be following the chat as well. Like many people are they do not work in the social sector, or they don't have they don't own their businesses, but they work in certain like workspaces. So what would be a very good point to start to begin with if you are championing for SDGs in your own workspace? Like what would be these tiny first baby steps towards this whole transformation?
Yeah, that's a good question. And previously, I had two experiences. I was 19 years old and I had stage and internship with a bank as a law student. And in the bank, after each year, they take all the papers, the used papers, and they recycle them, and we do handmade notebooks. I mean, like the daftar. So, and it's a small step maybe, but it taught us that this is what we call recycling and reusing something. In some, I mean, like we have different norms that we can just involve in our working days and our working life. But for example, we have a common rule in our working place of not using plastic cups. So it's a very easy and small thing. So, and we try to reduce the use of plastics, and each one of us is having it in our workplace, his cup. And it's very small steps. Maybe it's like not changing too much, but it's creating awareness in the workspace, and we know why we are doing it. It is a way of saying it's a common language, in fact. It's a common sentence, a common phrase we are using to show that we are aware of what is happening and we are involved in this movement, in this worldwide global movement. So there are, of course, each business has its different dynamics, and each business may have like different ways of including SDG awareness and impact, creating social impact. It's in fact, it may be so easy. We had a company that is doing after they are a restaurant, a simple Syrian refugee company, by the way, Syrian restaurant, who are working with only women. So all the workers, they are women, and they are trying to support gender equality. And after, with the rest of all the food, they are giving it to animals or to people with needs. So here we have, I mean, it may be like it's not that much important, but it is improving, and it is including SDGs behavior and having a common behavior inside the workplace. So it may be a very short and small thing. All the steps are so important and crucial.
So like we talked about SDGs being a very nice means of communicating impact. And if you have in mind, can you share us some like good examples of communicating impact through SDGs? Like it can be from or outside Turkey. Both would be okay.
I'm not sure I understand too much the question of communicating. Can you just give me one of the examples you have in your mind, Many, about this, by the way?
Yeah. I mean, the usage of like SDGs in a business context in general, where like we talked about like SDGs being a very good language, a common language for businesses or for impact communities, impact-oriented communities. So can you give us an example where SDGs are used like effectively in a business or like personal context?
Oh, yeah, that in a personal context, it's very, I watched a TED talk of an engineer woman that she tried to have zero waste in her home place, in her life. So, and she tried to do everything, to produce everything by herself. And she started to take like glass. When she goes to supermarket, she even tried not to use bags. And after 3 years of trying, she was able to have zero waste, which is a very important thing. But she had a talk like 15 minutes explaining how it was really, I will try to find it and share the link with you. It was really challenging to have a zero waste life, because we had been used of using everything. I mean, like everything around us is just waste. And we don't know how to reduce it, not as from a personal level, not from a business level, not from institutional level, not even like state level. I think that she was a very successful example of doing it from a personal level. And there is also like the well-being. There was an Italian company that used the SDGs and for the to have like a responsible. I cannot find the right word about it, but to have a quality life. for the workplace and for all the workers in the company. So they made this circular responsibility shifts, and they made their people, I mean, all the workers working only 3 days a week. And they just were able to see that there was like an increasing of 70% of the effectivity of the work, because they just respected 3 of the SDGs, which is the quality time and well-being and health of their workers. So that there's different examples, but I cannot just mention the names, and I'm sorry, I'm bad with the names. Do you have any other things from Turkey, by the way?
Well, we have Impact Up and Accelerate 2030, which is a program dedicated to SDGs.
We are the success story here.
Not to show off and brag about
no, you didn't.
Istanbul, but and like Accelerate is basically a program for like that is dedicated to SDGs, and it works on an international level, and like there are obviously many companies, many social entrepreneurs, like the previous alumni, like BioLive, for example, they communicated really effectively. It's a very good like social enterprise. Fazla Gıda also is like they communicate their impact through SDGs on their like communication.
How they are doing this, how they are communicating their impact through SDGs. I mean, what I cannot get.
Well, they base their strategy. They base their like impact measurement strategy on the indicators and on the SDGs in general. So it's not only the communication, but like it's about building a general strategy on around SDGs, not on SDGs, but around SDGs.
Yeah, respecting the SDGs and trying to work through it. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have to go to Norway to see a very successful state in the SDGs.
Yes, that would be great. But unfortunately, it's not. We are not there yet. But I'm optimistic about the future. Let's say. So, like as you mentioned, like as we know, you're a training coordinator at INGEV. So, how do SDGs find their places in your training content, and how do you observe your trainees to benefit from learning a development framework?
Yeah. So as you know, the 4th SDG, it's in fact about quality, and it's about education. And education doesn't mean only formal education, it's also non-formal education, the education that we are giving through civil society, the education that we are giving on a long life education, in fact. In INGEV, we try to include the understanding of the SDGs in our training programs. So for example, when we have, as you know, INGEV is also working a lot with SMEs, small and medium businesses, and we try to explain for example, we are trying to explain what means environment, how to protect environment, and what are the problems of climate change, and how to have a zero waste company. We try to include these kind of information in our training programs, and we try to explain to our beneficiaries the way they may be responsible somehow on creating a friendly environment, and an environment like respecting the SDGs and this common, global challenges, like aware of these challenges, even in their short, small workplaces. And it is working because, in fact, many people from our beneficiaries, they always just come back and say, well, I just created this SME thanks to the help and support of different organizations. So, we're also giving some grants for different SMEs to launch their work. And we try to have, it's our 5th year, and we are having this profit, and we want to have 10% of our profit to just give it to other young people in order to help their training, to help their initiatives. I think so. The thing that when you start by creating an impact, it just goes around. It's the karma, in fact, it's the energy, and it comes back to you somehow. And making people aware of the SDGs, as I said, so it makes them, and they understand that it's not a very elite thing. It's not about the UN only. It's something that we can do on our daily life. And even if I am a small company, I don't need to be, a holding or a bank or whatever. Even in an SME with just 3 or 4 workers, they can do something for the SDGs. That's what we are trying to incorporate to integrate in our training programs to help people understand. Of course, not all the training projects, programs we have, they are based on SDGs. But when we talk about, for example, digital communication or marketing, so indirectly, you can even explain to people that, to explain to your beneficiaries through these education programs that it means creating new chances of getting new profit and of having an equal life and of respecting or trying to work on the SDGs. So that's how indirectly we try to incorporate this in our general training programs. But at the same time, we are now working with Habitat, and we have the Shumius platform, which is talking about, we have podcasts and advocacy projects about sustainable development goals, climate change and environment, and we try to raise awareness about it. We are also preparing another program about our European Union environmental questions, and we are trying to make people, our beneficiaries, and this program will be in Arabic, English, and Turkish, in 3 languages, and I will be so happy to share it with you, in which we try to explain how to use SDGs in your daily life, not only as a business, but also as a human being, in fact.
Okay, so before we close, I want to ask you like one final question, which will be also a call to action. And if you have final remarks to add, please do so. So like if a person wants to learn about SDGs, like learn more about SDGs, what would you recommend to them? Where should they start, or what are some nice resources or nice ways to learn more about SDGs? And if you have some other remarks, please add to them to the answers, and it would be great.
Every time I want to learn something new, I don't open Google, I go to YouTube, by the way, and I love TED Talks. They have like the shortest, but like it's in 12 minutes and you have people inspiring with their talks. I did a certificate program for 2 years with about social entrepreneurship and SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, and I was a member of International Youth Parliament for Water. So for 5 years, I worked just for water issues in as an African in Africa, which is a very important question. So we are expecting a conflict, and we are having conflicts because of water now, as you know, in Africa, and it will be a destiny maybe if we don't do something. So I think everyone should start with understanding what are the problems he's facing in his neighborhood, and just like Google it, and you will, even your municipality report, the annual report, they are just mentioning the SDGs, what they did for it. I think that the UN, they have the SDG website, they have very small, it's in English, I'm not sure if it is in Turkish, but they are giving small examples, success stories about each SDGs. There is a lot of the Oxford University YouTube channel, they have like 2 minutes for each SDGs to explain it with animation, which is a very important resource as well. I will also share it with you if you want later on. And it's like the 17, you just have you need 1 hour to understand each of these SDGs and the ways you can just protect them, how to be an SDG ambassador. For the young ones among us, the ones who are less than 25 years old, there are the SDG ambassador program. And it's really important. It's an entrepreneurship for 1 year, and they just give you a small amount of money, and you try to go all around Turkey. For example, if you are Turkish or Tunisian or whatever in your country, talk with institutions, talk with universities, and try to raise the awareness about the SDG culture. So if you are young, please do it. I missed that chance. It's a very important program, and I think it will help you a lot to start a career even in the SDGs. I think it's the future career for all of us, by the way.
Thank you, Esma. It was a really great conversation, and it was really a pleasure for us to have you as our guest speaker. So if you have like further questions, please, like you can keep on asking them, and maybe we can make some room after the quiz. Now, if you have something to add on top of this, please have your time. If not, I'm going to hand it over to Rawan.
I'm checking the chat box. I don't see any questions. Thank you, Rawan, for sharing INGEF's website. And there's other people, other TED Talks. Mariam, hello. Yeah, I love them, by the way. So it's my first source to understand, to learn about the subject. There is very good talks and videos about the SDGs.
Also, TED is a really nice resource, but I'm not sure
Yeah.
if they have anything on SDGs
They
themselves.
Oh, yeah. They have like talks. There are talks about like explaining the MDG and the SDG and what we are doing, how to use SDGs in our daily life. They have like about 5 or 6 very important speeches.
And there is one question in the last minute: how to make SDGs more inclusive?
They are in fact inclusive. The thing that we are not aware of their inclusivity, by the way, unfortunately. I mean, SDGs, in fact, they came in order to not leave anyone behind. So we are, when we say SDGs, we talk about including everyone, especially the vulnerable people, and try to do something for them. So they are inclusive by definitions, but unfortunately we are not aware of this because we don't have enough. We are not doing enough. In fact, we are not talking enough. We are not explaining enough. We are making it look a little bit like an elite subject, which it's not. It's not an elite subject. It is a daily life subject. So it is an inclusive, but maybe working a lot about the outreach, making people aware of it, having a more simple way of explaining it. Because sometimes you just have like 2 words and it is indicators, SDGs, ratio, and very big words, and you just cannot understand them. But in fact, the message is really simple. So maybe making the communication more simple and trying to explain still starting with our children is important. And in different countries all over the world, in France, for example, they are teaching SDGs to 5 years old kids in kindergarten. And it's important because even kids, they can understand it. It's that much easy and simple. But if we just do it and try to talk about SDGs as if it's an institutional and governmental matter, then of course it may seem the way you say it as not an inclusive thing. Mariam.
She thanks.
Welcome.
Okay, thank you, Esma, again.
We have the quiz time, today. Right?
Yeah, we have the quiz time, and we will have a very short quiz. And the winner of the quiz. Now we talked about like inclusion and sustainability. Now we are going to try to beat each other in a quiz, and the winner will get a very small gift from WWF Markets, which we will announce. Rawan will announce after it. So Rawan, up to you.
All right, thank you, Mali. Here we go. I'm gonna start with the first question. So I'm gonna wait for people to join. I can only see one person joining. Okay, one with, okay, cool. Anyone is having any trouble like connecting to the quiz, you can write in the chat. Otherwise, I'm going to start. Here we go. We need to answer fast to get more points. When were the SDGs created? The faster you answer, the higher points you get, basically. Cool. Okay, so the majority answered the correct question, which is the SDGs were created and agreed upon in 2012. Next question will be, I'm sorry to keep you waiting.
Ravan, maybe you can refresh the page and
I guess the quiz was stopped, Raman.
I don't know why it's...
yeah, probably there was a connectivity issue, I guess. Maybe Ravan, you can close the tab and I will start.
Sure.
But you go ahead. I will just share the screen. Sorry for the inconvenience, by the way. These things, happen during the online events, especially. Okay, let's see. Okay, thank God it continues. Yes, finally. So I hope you're still back on track, or have you also lost connection, everyone?
Try refreshing your pages. I hope it works.
Anytime you're ready, I can start. Just tell me to hit enter and I will.
We've got 7 people back. Perhaps we can start. 8. What is the name of the previous developmental goals? Like, what were they called before? Future development goals, goals to survive, goals for international development, or millennium development goals? Great. I'm so proud of you guys. You've been listening. So yeah, everyone answered, like most of you answered millennium. Now to question 3. Which one of the below is not an SDG? It's not included. No poverty, gender equality, peace, justice, and strong institutions, internet for everyone. Which one is not included? Time's up. Cool, guys. You're making it.
Well, it should be an SDG, by the way.
It should, right? So we're seeing the progress right now. The quiz is not over yet, but we can see that Efe has been answering the fastest. So yeah. try to perform faster. Which one of the below is the motto of the SDGs? Change now, leave no one behind. We did our best, impact for all. Okay, almost half-half. Like they're very similar, I understand. So yeah.
If you happen to come to Impact Hub, Impact
Exactly.
for All is our Wi-Fi password.
Yeah, you can steal Wi-Fi from us.
You can win something at least. Maybe not the quiz, but free Wi-Fi.
And the next question, how many development targets do SDGs have? Like there are sub-targets of each goal. Okay, not a bad answer. I like maybe it wasn't mentioned during the event, but like there are sub-targets for each one of the SDGs, and they are aiming to make it more concrete for people to understand what each goal covers, like in general.
And this should be the last question.
Mm-hmm. What is the deadline for sustainable development goals? Meaning, when should we achieve them, basically? You can cheat from our program's name. I think it was kind of obvious, like you've seen it everywhere probably, like it's always 2030 and stuff. So yeah, so the progress, easiest quiz ever. So I think FA has won. Claps. Congrats, FA.
Can we also see him?
Yeah. FA, can you?
Yeah, I see now.
Yeah.
I've been paying attention to the program since the beginning, so it shouldn't be too hard for me.
Okay, your listening skills paid off basically. So yeah.
If you can write your contact details to me on private, I can reach out to you to get your size. It was like a pullover.
All right, that'll be great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ravan, by the way. That was amazing.
Welcome.
It was a little bit bumpy. Yeah, we finished on time. I'm so proud that we are being able to finish events on time lately. So I would like to thank the team and to our guests today, to our audience today. Thank you for joining us in this day when it's getting colder, and I think we will get back to online events a little bit more in the following days and weeks. And I would obviously thank Esma for being here with us today and having such a great conversation. And
thank you for you and for the Impact Hub team. You're so tatlı guys. I mean, like I love you. You have a lot of fun, and yeah, I'm sure. I mean, like working in such an environment in which you have SDGs and fun is really important. So, congrats.
I'm really glad to hear that we share the feelings, and thanks again. See you next time. We are having another webinar, by the way. Maybe Ravan, you can introduce that because you will be the host of that webinar.
Okay. So yeah, next week we are going to host a new webinar in this same series. where we will talk about social entrepreneurship, basically, what makes a business social, like how, like what are the different definitions of a social enterprise, how it differs from country to another, and we will host great social entrepreneurs from abroad. So stay in tune. Follow us on social media, and you won't miss it.
Take care, everyone. Bye.
So much. See you later.